The first time I realized my wedding might not happen, I was staring at a stack of invoices. The numbers blurred together, floral arrangements, deposits, tuxedo fittings, when Cordelia walked in like she owned the air. She didn't smile, didn't ask about my day. Instead, she set her leather briefcase on the counter as if she were about to deliver a keynote address. "Ethan," she said, smoothing her blouse with that practiced calm professors use before silencing a lecture hall, "I've made a professional decision about my name after the marriage." There was no tremor in her voice. Just certainty. I expected something ordinary. Maybe she'd keep Hampton, her maiden name, or hyphenate with mine, Morrison. I braced myself to nod, to prove I was the supportive fiancé. But Cordelia's gaze sharpened like she was about to dissect me. "I'll continue publishing under Fitzgerald." I laughed once, a reflex, until the silence made it clear she wasn't joking. "Ashton Fitzgerald?" I asked, setting my pen down. She folded her arms, chin lifted. "Yes. It's practical. My entire academic record, every article, every citation, is tied to that name. If I abandon it now, I lose recognition. Years of work vanish." It took a moment for the words to land. Fitzgerald. Not mine. Not hers. The name of the man she dated before me. The one whose presence had always been faint but steady, like a watermark on old paper. "You were never married to him," I said carefully. "That's irrelevant. In our field, a name is currency. Fitzgerald opens doors." Her tone was rehearsed, precise. She wasn't speaking to me, she was defending herself to some invisible committee. I looked at her then, really looked. The woman I had asked to marry me wasn't nervous or apologetic. She was resolute, as though my opinion was a mere procedural step. "So," I said slowly, "when you walk down the aisle, you'll still be Cordelia Hampton Fitzgerald." Not Morrison. Her eyes flickered, but she didn't retreat. It's the only logical choice. And that's when something inside me shifted. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I just reached for my laptop. If she could make professional announcements, so could I. By the time her bridesmaids started calling, the wedding invitations already carried a new line beneath my name, "Attendance pending." The calls started like smoke alarms, shrill, insistent, impossible to ignore. First Phoebe, then Jade, then Ramona, until even Genevieve, Cordelia's sister, had left 3 voicemails in a row. Each message carried the same script: "You're overreacting. Don't ruin this. Be reasonable." By the 4th call, I stopped answering. Instead, I sat in the quiet of our apartment, watching the late sun crawl across the blinds. Somewhere outside, a dog barked. Somewhere inside, a wedding was already collapsing. 2 days later, they arrived in person. 4 women in pastel dresses, united like a firing squad. Phoebe stepped forward, spokesperson by default, her voice lined with exasperation. "Ethan, you need to stop this performance," she said, glancing at the muted laptop where my updated wedding website still sat open. "Cordelia is devastated. You're embarrassing her." I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. She embarrassed herself the moment she decided her ex-boyfriend's name was more valuable than her fiancé's. Jade, ever the diplomat, softened her voice. "You don't understand academia. Reputation there isn't about feelings. Her work lives and dies by that surname. It doesn't change what she feels for you." "Then if it doesn't matter," I countered, "why not let it go? Why not build something new?" Ramona, blunt as always, cut through. "You're really willing to throw away a wedding over this? Over a word?" The question hung between us, sharp and heavy. I looked at them one by one, their loyalty to Cordelia plain on their faces. But behind their urgency, I saw something else: fear. Fear that if I stood my ground, the narrative they'd been sold about Cordelia's perfect life would unravel. "She loves you," Jade pressed. "Isn't that enough?" "Not if love comes with someone else's shadow attached," I said. Silence filled the room, thick and uncomfortable. It broke only when the front door opened. Cordelia stepped inside, catching the tableau, her bridesmaids facing me like prosecutors, me refusing to flinch. "What the hell is this?" she demanded. "They came to stage an intervention," I said. Her glare cut toward them, betrayal flashing across her features. But she didn't deny it. And that silence told me everything. Cordelia hadn't come to fight alone, she had already recruited her army. That night, when the shouting finally ended, she packed a bag and left for her sisters. The apartment had never felt so empty, or so strangely clear. For a while, I told myself it was just stubbornness. Cordelia had drawn a line, and I had drawn mine. Eventually one of us would blink. That's how couples survive, right? Compromise. But compromise requires honesty, and that was already gone. The confirmation came in an unexpected call from Landon, a friend who taught in another wing of the university. His voice carried that hesitant weight of someone about to detonate your world. "Ethan, listen. I don't know how much you know about Cordelia's connections. But the Fitzgerald name isn't just some brand she clings to. It's the lifeline that built her career." I frowned, staring at the rows of unpaid invoices still scattered across the kitchen table. "What do you mean, lifeline?" "Ashton's father is Dean Fitzgerald. Every conference she's spoken at, every panel she's moderated, it's all tied to his network. And the papers? Every single one co-authored with Ashton. Honestly, she wouldn't be where she is without them." The words stung more than I wanted to admit. I had imagined her late nights hunched over drafts, the determination I'd admired as dedication. Now those memories blurred into something else, her building a future on a borrowed name, on a borrowed man. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She sat across from me, hands folded like a defendant. "That's not fair. I worked hard. I deserve every line of those publications." "Maybe," I said, keeping my voice even. "But you also borrowed someone else's signature to get them printed. Tell me, Cordelia, how many of your papers would have survived peer review without Ashton attached?" She blinked, lips parting but no sound escaping. That silence was my answer. Later, Ashton himself called, his voice surprisingly apologetic. "I assumed she'd stop using it after you two got engaged. Honestly, it's weird for me too. But my dad likes her work. He told me not to make waves." I hung up with a bitter taste in my mouth. It wasn't just a name anymore, it was a fortress of nepotism, and I was expected to live inside it. That night, as Cordelia typed furiously at her laptop, I stared at the wedding invitation pinned to our fridge. My own name looked fragile beside hers. For the first time, I wondered if showing up at that altar would mean burying my identity inside her ambition. The walls of our apartment became a battlefield. Every conversation turned into cross-examination, every silence a verdict. She said I was petty. I said she was dishonest. The truth was simpler, neither of us trusted the other anymore. The breaking point came one night when I logged onto the wedding website to finalize meal selections. The header had changed back. Cordelia had rewritten it, undoing my attendance pending note and replacing it with cheerful lies. Guests were reassured the website had been hacked, that everything was on track. When I confronted her, she didn't flinch. "I can't let you sabotage everything we've built over something so trivial." "Trivial?" I said. "You're clinging to your ex's name like it's oxygen. And you expect me to stand at the altar smiling while everyone applauds Dr. Hampton Fitzgerald." She slammed her laptop shut, eyes flashing. "You don't understand. I already filed my tenure application under that name. If I change it now, I'll lose years." The words landed like a fist. "You submitted it without telling me? I was going to surprise you when I got it," she said, as if that were romantic. I laughed, sharp and hollow. "With Ashton's name attached? That's your idea of a wedding gift?" For the first time, she looked afraid, not of me, but of the crumbling scaffolding of her plans. She tried to pivot, offering what she called a compromise, hyphenating all three names, Hampton, Morrison, Fitzgerald. I shook my head. "That's not a compromise. That's you stapling me to a monument you built to another man. You get everything." I get a footnote. Her voice cracked. You're being impossible. No, I said quietly. I'm being consistent. You want to be a Fitzgerald professionally? Fine. Be single personally. That night, I called the country club and withdrew my portion of the payment. Without my card, they demanded the remaining balance in full, $15,000, due immediately. Cordelia stormed in minutes later, fury in her eyes. The venue says we're in default. Did you do this? I didn't even look up from my coffee. Better call Ashton. His family's been footing the bill for years. Her silence told me she already had. The morning of the wedding felt wrong before I even opened my eyes. My phone buzzed with 73 unread messages, pleas from bridesmaids, guilt-laced demands from her parents, even one desperate text from Cordelia herself. I'm already in the dress. If you don't come, I'll never forgive you. I came anyway, but not as the groom. Jeans, t-shirt, no ring. I walked into the country club like an uninvited guest at my own life. The place shimmered with flowers and white linen, 100 faces turned toward me with expectant relief. Her father cornered me first, eyes sharp with fury. You came to your senses? I pressed the ring into his palm. No. I came to return this. The murmurs spread through the crowd like a ripple on glass. Then Cordelia appeared, radiant in lace, makeup sculpted into perfection. For a moment, I almost remembered why I'd asked her in the first place. Almost. You came, she whispered, a smile trembling at the edges. I shook my head. Not for vows. For closure. The room hushed. Phones lifted, recording. Cordelia's voice climbed, desperate. It's just a name, Ethan. Then change it, I said. I can't. Then I can't marry you. A gasp echoed from the back. Someone dropped a glass. The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. And then, like a final twist of the knife, Ashton and his girlfriend Bethany stepped forward. Cordelia had invited them, a performance of good faith. Bethany's face was pale but resolute as she raised her phone. Tell them, Cordelia. Tell them about the messages you sent last week, asking Ashton to leave me so you could keep his name without interference. The room froze. Ashton's mouth fell open. You what? Cordelia stammered, reaching for him, but Bethany held up the glowing screen. Texts, undeniable. Words in Cordelia's own voice. If you cared about my career, you'd understand why I need this. The illusion shattered. Ashton turned, voice flat. We're done. And I'll be filing to have your name removed from every future paper. They walked out. Half the guests followed. Cordelia stood alone in her dress, mascara bleeding into the satin. This is your fault, she whispered. No, I said, stepping back into the light of the doorway. This is the price of choosing a name over a marriage. And then I left her standing in the ruins of her perfect day. The week after what should have been my wedding felt like the quiet after a hurricane. The apartment was still littered with fragments of plans, menus we'd never taste, a tux bag I never opened, a guest book waiting for names that would never be written. I didn't rush to clear them away. Sometimes wreckage tells its own story better than words. News traveled fast. Videos from the country club spread online before I even left the parking lot. 1,000 strangers watched Cordelia unravel in real time, the woman who wanted to be Dr. Fitzgerald more than anyone's wife. I didn't comment. I didn't need to. The footage spoke louder than anything I could say. Her world began to collapse from the inside. The university launched an ethics review into her publications. Conferences quietly dropped her from their rosters. The Fitzgerald severed ties, the name she clung to suddenly as heavy as an anchor. By the time the tenure committee issued its denial, Cordelia was living back with her parents, trying to explain away ambition that had curdled into desperation. Me? I didn't feel triumphant. Just free. There's no satisfaction in watching someone destroy themselves, even when they dragged you down with them. But there was relief, clean, sharp, undeniable. One evening, I sat on the balcony with a beer, the city humming below, and thought about the life I almost signed up for. A life where my name would always stand second, where my marriage would always be tethered to a ghost. Cordelia texted once, from a new number. I would have changed it eventually. I stared at the screen until the words blurred, then typed my reply. Names are easy to change. Priorities aren't. Block. End of story. And yet, not quite. Because endings are never just endings. They're beginnings disguised as aftermath. A week later, I met someone at my gym. She didn't know my story, didn't care about resumes or citations. When I asked about her last name, she laughed and said, "Not important. I'm me." It was the simplest thing. The truest. Cordelia will keep chasing prestige under borrowed letters. Let her. She chose a name, I chose a life. And if I learned anything, it's this: love can survive many things, but it cannot survive belonging to someone else's shadow.